Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into a concept that maybe sounds a bit strange at first, the ports of the Gulag.
Mm-hmm.
But, forget any idea of ships or seaside towns. These weren't those kinds of ports.
No, not at all. Far, far more sinister. A whole network really central to the Soviet forced labor system.
Exactly. It's grim stuff, no doubt, but really crucial if you want to understand this part of history.
And for this deep dive, we're using some incredibly powerful source material. We're looking closely at Chapter 2, the ports of the archipelago, from the Gulag Archipelago.
Right.
And our mission really is to pull out the key insights from this account. Shed light on the day-to-day reality, the sheer chaos of the administration, and the psychological impact of these transit points.
Yeah, it's definitely heavy. But the goal here is to kind of guide you through it, pull out those key facts, those aha moments without it being overwhelming.
Exactly.
So let's step into this world together. What strikes me right away about these ports is just how many there were everywhere. The also paints this picture of the Soviet map being speckled by infectious flies, provincial capitals, train junctions, river routes. It's a really chilling image, isn't it?
It really is. And it tells you this wasn't some fringe operation. It was embedded in the system.
Right.
The numbers are just staggering. A typical prisoner, a Zek, might know 3, maybe 5, but many recalled a dozen.
A dozen?
Yeah, and the source talks about sons of Gulag, people who really knew the system inside out. They could name maybe 50.
50, wow.
Because you see, any town that had a functioning court needed a transit prison for prisoner delivery. It meant they were basically unavoidable, woven into the fabric of the country.
So not just the big hubs, literally everywhere.
Precisely. We get examples like Nauru described as having strong barracks, Irkutsk, where the windows were bricked up, just leaving these tiny slits.
The slits.
Yeah. Bagda, an old building, towers, rotting, leaky toilets. Usman, just lice-ridden, packed, stinking. You couldn't imagine where they fit everyone. Syktyvkar used old detention cells. Rybinsk, Tuktet, they used former monasteries.
Monasteries.
Yeah. So the word port, it suggests movement, maybe freedom, but the reality was so grim they all just blurred together in memory as these awful similar places.
That contrast just makes it even harsher, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The name versus the reality.
Absolutely. And it becomes so clear these places weren't just for holding people. They were designed systematically to break them down, to strip away dignity.
How so? What were the common experiences?
Well, the accounts describe these common threads of dehumanization, like convoys who couldn't even read properly trying to do roll calls.
Naps, yeah.
Endless waiting, intrusive body searches, completely naked, unsanitary haircuts, cold, slippery baths, foul toilets, damp, moldy corridors. And the cells, always crowded, dark, wet. The only warmth was from human bodies crammed together on these, bumpy wooden bunks.
And the food.
The food was often this wet, almost liquid bread and gruel made from something that prisoners described as silage, like cattle feed.
It's hard to wrap your head around that level of squalor. Deliberate deprivation. Can you share some specific stories, the ones that really hit home?
Oh, the book is full of them. Chillin' stuff. Take Ivanovo, winter of 37-38. Unheated cells.
In winter?
Yes. But prisoners on the top bunks were lying undressed because they were desperate for air. They were knocking out window panes just so they wouldn't suffocate.
Unbelievable.
And imagine this. A cell meant for 20 people, crammed with 323.
300?
Yes. With boards laid in water under the lower bunks where others lay. No light reached down there. And rations. They weren't given individually.
How did that work?
Given to units of 10, which led to this horror. People hiding corpses under the bunks so they could keep collecting the dead person's ration.
Oh, my God.
And on top of all that, lice, abscesses, typhus, and then a 4-month quarantine. They were just trapped in that hell.
That detail about the rations, that's just profoundly disturbing.
Yeah.
Was that kind of chaos common elsewhere?
It really was tragically amplified in places like Vladivostok. February 1937, it was the big bottleneck for transports heading to Kolyma.
Kolyma, infamous.
Exactly. So the ships could take maybe 30,000 prisoners a month, but there were 40,000 crammed into the transit prison there.
So they were stuck.
Stuck for months, infested with bed bugs described like locusts. And they only got half a mug of water a day.
Half a mug.
There's this shocking detail. An entire compound of Koreans apparently died out completely from dysentery.
The entire compound?
That's the account. And from other compounds, they were removing 100 corpses daily. Prisoners had to haul stones for the morgue, and guards, Guards fired on prisoners who begged for medicine.
Just fired on them.
Yes, and the brutality didn't stop. Farino Bay, 1949. 35,000 prisoners, constant forced transfers at night, whistles, screams, commands, like without the last one.
What does that mean without the last one?
It meant the last person in line would be killed. Just pure terror tactics.
Yeah.
And water distribution, sprayed from big tanks. It caused fights, chaos.
They're like animals.
Exactly. And guards would fire down from watchtowers into the crowd. Major General Dyachenko, the chief administrator for Kolyma camps, apparently just said, "We shot and we will go on shooting."
Chilling. That level of disregard for life.
And the overcrowding, it wasn't just physical, it was psychological warfare.
Yeah.
Kirov, 1947, 2 turnkeys literally needed boots to force prisoners into cells, jamming them in to shut the door.
Using their boots.
Yeah. And it was September, but everyone was naked on these 3-tier bunks because of the heat. No room to lie down. And bedbugs apparently dive-bombed straight from the ceiling.
Yeah.
The author himself, Krasnaya Presnya, August 45. Victory summer, right? 100 people packed into a cell a little larger than the average room in an apartment, steel sheets over the windows, blocking air, radiating heat.
It sounds like every detail was designed to break people.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about the latrine bucket.
Yes, that's a really stark observation in the source. You think of the latrine bucket as the symbol of prison squalor, right?
Yeah.
But actually, having one was a mercy. The real horror started when there weren't enough buckets.
So what happened then?
Unimaginable compromises. It led to what the author calls a wisdom derived from vast experience, like knowing how to pee in your canvas hood or even your boot without ruining it. Grim knowledge.
Oh, wow.
And then there's Mosin Prison.
Yeah.
4 prisoners sharing 1 food bowl and just 1 mug of water per person per day.
1 mug for everything.
For everything. And the psychological twists, like someone refusing to use their water to rinse the shared bowl. That's where you see, as the author puts it, the rock bottom of a human being.
That shared deprivation. It's horrifying. Which makes it almost strange that, prisoners squashed in train cars for days actually dreamed of the transit prison.
Yeah, it's poignant, isn't it? They dreamed it would be a place to rest, maybe get some space, use a proper toilet, get hot food, hot water for tea.
A respite?
A respite, but those dreams were just always fouled up, as the book says. The reality of the bathhouse, for instance, was another shock.
Oh, so
Women would suddenly have their hair shaved off. Men might be clipped by female barbers, another humiliation. Or you'd get there, and only cold water came out.
cold water.
Or even worse, being forced to run naked through the snow after a bath just to get your belongings back. It was just another layer of stripping dignity away, destroying hope.
And inside this system, there's this other layer, this internal hierarchy. The trustees.
Absolutely crucial. These weren't the official jailers following rules. These trustees held immense power over new arrivals, often predatory power.
But who were they exactly?
Often the blat or urki, the professional criminals, the thieves. They'd been, cleaned up, dressed up as representatives of the state. But also these half-breeds prisoners who weren't thieves themselves, but allied completely with them, becoming part of the exploitation.
And they exploited their position.
Ruthlessly.
Yeah.
You had chiefs putting relatives on the payroll for these trustee jobs, and the trustees themselves, the permanent residents, they'd steal food, bundles, anything from the newcomers.
How do they operate?
They had ways of bamboozling people, suggesting you turn in your money for safekeeping.
Which you never saw again.
Exactly. Or advising you leave your things outside the bathhouse.
And they'd be stolen.
Right. Or even selling you safekeeping protection from thieves for a price. It was a whole corrupt ecosystem.
A system beneath the system.
Totally. The slogans of the transit prison were grim. Don't look for justice here, and you're going to have to hand over everything you've got to us. Even the jailers wore stolen clothes sometimes.
Wow.
And it meant care packages from home, meant to be a lifeline, often became this poisoned gift. They made the recipient anxious, cowardly, always watching their back. It actually deprived them of what the author calls a newly dawning enlightenment, that kind of hardening resolve you needed.
That really brings it down to the personal level. The author shares his own story from Krasnaya Presnya, doesn't he? About being robbed.
He does. It's very revealing. He, sort of naively at first, tries to find a spot on the asphalt floor under the bunks.
Thinking it might be better.
Maybe quieter, yeah. Only to be silently robbed by these kids, juvenile rats, he calls them. Boys as young as 12.
And what did that do to him? How did he react?
It led to this really painful self-reflection. He thinks about his past courage in the war, facing bombs, driving over mines, leading his men. But here, in the cell, he couldn't fight back against these boys.
Why not?
Fear, maybe, the sheer degradation. But the culmination is this humiliating moment where he has to appeal to the pakan, the ringleader of the cell, just to get a space on the bunks.
Appealing to the thief.
Yes. And in doing that, he recognizes the thief's authority. And worse, he sacrifices other prisoners, the gray neutrals, to get that space.
Oh, wow.
He talks about the shame lasting for years, realizing he sacrificed his own brothers. It was this harsh, awful lesson. You have to be banged on flank and snout again and again, toughened up, just to become at least human beings in that environment. A grim transformation.
What an agonizing compromise. It shows how the system forces these terrible moral choices. And yet, you mentioned paradoxically, there were some benefits to the transit prison. Seems hard to believe.
It does sound strange, but it's framed as providing gradual preparation for camp life. Like a necessary shucking process. It softened the blow of arriving at the main camps.
Okay, like an acclimatization period.
Sort of. And perhaps the most profound thing was the chance for the first permitted letter home. Even finding paper or a pencil was incredibly hard.
But important.
Hugely important. Those were the first unfamiliar words home of a man who had been plowed over by interrogation. Words that showed the family he'd never be the same person again.
That's heartbreaking.
There's this image, a woman on a hill overlooking the Kubyshev transit prison in 1950, desperately scanning 300 depersonalized ants below, searching for her husband. That image inspired the thought of building a monument there.
Yeah. And there was also something about gaining perspective.
Yes, a breadth of outlook. In transit prisons, unlike the camps where fear of informants was intense, people talked more freely, shared stories, experiences. Prisoners got aired out, became more lucid. They learned more about their country, their people, the world.
So a kind of grim education.
In a way. And you could encounter extraordinary people, like the miracle Swede, Eric Arvid Anderson.
Tell me about him. That sounds intriguing.
His story is almost unbelievable. Son of a billionaire, nephew of a British general, volunteered for the British Army, landed in Normandy.
Wow.
Then became a career Swedish officer, but with this thirst for socialism. He visits Moscow, writes articles praising the Soviet system.
And they like
They did, until he was kidnapped in East Berlin. They wanted him to publicly denounce capitalism, but he refused, stubbornly.
What did they do?
They subjected him to torture by menu, ordering fancy food for him and then never letting him eat it. But he just kept this almost naive faith that the West was strong, that he'd be rescued or ransomed.
Did he ever get out?
The account doesn't say, but they forced him into this fake identity, Swedish Ivanov, to hide who he really was. Just one example of the incredible range of people swept up in this.
Okay, so despite these occasional moments of connection or perspective, we need to circle back. This idea some old camp hands had, that the transit prison was a rest home.
Yeah, that advice, lie down, take it easy, enjoy the rations.
That was just completely wrong then.
Utterly wrong. A dangerous myth. The reality involved forced labor. Think about Kotless prison before the war. Weakened prisoners literally harnessed to sledges like draft animals, hauling firewood for miles.
Harnessed like animals.
Yes, and the author himself talks about volunteering at Krasnaya Presnya in 45, unloading timber from the Moscow River.
Why volunteer?
For the right to breathe air, he says, and an extra quarter-pound of bread. But he admits he expended far more energy than he got back.
Right.
And he makes this really honest confession about his worthless heart secretly wanting to be a work brigade leader, to have that little bit of power. And he realizes, oh, how hard it is to part with power.
Even in that situation. So definitely not a rest home. Just another form of exploitation coupled with this administrative nightmare you mentioned.
Oh, the chaos was unbelievable. Krasnaya Presnya, being so central and overcrowded, was like the virtual capital of Gulag.
And the offices were just chaos.
Complete chaos. Case files torn, mixed up, scattered everywhere. Shelves, floor, under tables. Secretaries described as lazy, flirting, unwilling to sort it out.
But people had to be shipped out.
Exactly. Train loads several times a week. So who decided who went where? The trustees again. The bitches, the half-breeds. They'd grab files from different piles, essentially deciding a prisoner's fate, which camp, which transport. An invisible, corrupt system. Worse than just random chance, worse than a roll of the dice.
That sounds terrifyingly arbitrary, almost like a slave market.
It absolutely was in some ways. There was this horrifying practice of switched sentences.
What's that?
Big-time criminals, thieves, murderers, they'd swap identities with, say, a stupid, non-political offender who had a shorter sentence.
How could they do that?
During roll calls, confusion. The example given is Vasya Parfenish Yashkin. A thief stole his identity, leaving the real Yashkin to serve the thief's much longer, heavier sentence for serious crimes.
That's horrific. An innocent man serving a murderer's time.
Exactly. And then you had the literal buyers coming from different camps.
Like,
yes, camp representatives coming to inspect the merchandise, the prisoners, sometimes demanding them alive and bare-skinned.
Bare-skinned, yeah.
There's a shocking scene described from Uzman prison in 1947, MVD officers selecting bedmates from lines of undressed women prisoners, like choosing cattle.
Just treating people as objects.
Completely.
So after navigating all of this, the squalor, the brutality, the chaos, the trustees, what were the absolute rock-bottom lessons for survival, the things you had to know?
The fundamental lesson, according to the source, was the law of the tiger of the jungle.
Which means?
Nobody does anything for free. Any offer that seems unselfish, it's a trap, a dirty trick of provocation, always.
Trust no one.
Trust no one but yourself. That was the stark advice from veterans. From your very first step in camp, everyone will try to deceive and plunder you. But the most critical piece of advice, the life or death rule.
What was it?
Avoid general assignment work. At any price.
Why?
Because it was a death sentence. 80% of prisoners on general assignment died. You had to find a way out of it, whatever it took.
Which brings us back to that haunting question the author poses, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do you measure that price? How high do you go?
Exactly. And reflecting on this deep dive, these transit prisons, these ports, they weren't just about suffering. They were these complex, awful microcosms, places where dignity was ground down, where terrible moral compromises happened daily, where survival itself came at an immense cost. It really does show you the rock bottom of a human being.
It really does. From the administrative chaos, just mind-boggling, to the power of those trustees and these awful paradoxes, dreaming of a rest home, finding a slave market instead. The whole system seems designed purely to break the human spirit.
It does, and yet... Maybe the final thought to leave you with is about that spirit. How does a system built on dehumanization and absurdity reveal not just destruction, but also this incredible, sometimes flawed, but undeniable resilience? What does it tell you about the lengths people will endure for survival and the profound, lasting cost of those compromises? Something to think about.